Call the meeting to order for the Willmar City Council Tuesday, January 19th. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Christensen. Anderson.
Here.
Amman. Nelsen.
Here.
Meskey.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Fagerlie.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda? We should remove item number 12. It takes 8 council members to be here to discuss that. So we may just well remove that. And it does die for the lack of having a full council. So if council wants to do that, otherwise we can talk about it when it gets to that point. Okay, motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion for the consent items.
Move to approve.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent items. Discussion. Councilmember Nelsen.
Just clarification on item D, that application wasn't complete. Are we okay approving that before we get all the information?
Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, staff is comfortable with this because the tax numbers were going to be called back into us from this individual. I can follow up with that. It won't go anywhere from the state level, so if he fails to call me, I could get it a week from now on the state level. So it's identical to last year. They need to get it moving along for their March 12th raffle.
Would you like to pull that item, Councilmember Nelsen?
No, as long as we're okay approving it as is. It's just not complete. I was just curious. So.
Okay. There's been motion made and seconded to approve the consent items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. No items were removed from consent agenda. Next will be the State of the City address. Tonight, as I deliver my State of the City address, I reflect back over this past year as mayor and realize the city has had a progressive year. We have had some struggles that have caused concern, but overall, it was a great year. I'd like to take this opportunity to review some of our highlights. Last year, the City of Willmar saw a tax base increase by adding 12 new housing units and 5 duplexes. As we have heard, housing is a growing concern, and the Canada County Housing Task Force study shows need in every level of housing. This includes single-family housing as well as affordable and market-rate housing. Our housing for retired residents and those moving closer to caregivers also sees a demand that remains unmet in our community. The city saw an increase of $35 million in total construction valuation, with some of our larger projects being the continued renovation at Rice Hospital, update and remodel for Highland Apartments, MnDOT building update and additional office space, Chapel Central and Willmar Poultry expansions, Bethesda Housing, which has a large remodel and a new building project that will allow combining their 2 long-term care facilities, along with their city-owned Rice Rehab Facility and Barn Theater project. These projects took a strong community vision and many staff hours to bring to the table. Our building code staff should be commended for the work they do so we can keep these inspections local and not transferred to the state building code offices. Willmar is the recipient of one of the largest Tiger grants in the nation. Our project partners have secured a $10 million Tiger grant for the Willmar Y project. This project is one many folks have been working on for a few years and is a true public-private partnership. Working with our elected officials in Washington and St. Paul allowed us to secure this funding. Our local match, and that from Burlington Northern Santa Fe, shows a willingness to look at opportunities that will bring safety to Willmar and our surrounding communities. Decreasing the pinch point in Willmar will allow commodities to be moved by rail to distribution hubs not only here in Minnesota, but Chicago as well. This project was highly rated by Governor Dayton and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. This $50 million project is slated to begin construction in early 2017, and I'm grateful to our staff, namely Bruce Peterson, and all involved for their hard work to bring this project to completion. The ability to reroute train traffic along this bypass will benefit our community in many ways and increase safety in our rail yard and our community. Other notable infrastructure projects in 2015 include the reconstruction and overlay of city streets, our joint project with Candaway County on a parking lot reconstruct at the county office building, street lighting, and numerous infrastructure maintenance improvements that have been made. The city has improved 2.6 miles of our pathways in 2015. This and various underground utility projects were overseen by city staff for a construction value of $1.8 million. For 2015, the Public Works Department managed the seasonal snowfall of over 30 inches, as well as snow removal at our city airport. In 2015, the city accepted and adopted our updated master park plan. This was done after numerous community meetings seeking input. Participation at these meetings allowed our citizens to be heard about what our current park conditions are and then have input on where we're going in the future. Having the majority of our park equipment exceeding 20 years of useful life is unacceptable in my opinion, and a message our citizens expressed as well in these meetings. We need an incremental and sustained plan to maintain and expand recreational opportunities here in west central Minnesota. As you know, a plan that sits on the shelf doesn't do anyone any good. I would like to thank our staff for obtaining $97,000 in grant funding to replace some of our unsafe park equipment. As council, we have asked staff to leverage grant dollars so we can stretch our local dollars to improve our city parks. Job well done to community ed and rec staff. Keep up the good work. Our community education and public works staff provided outdoor winter entertainment at 4 skating rinks and 2 hockey rinks this past year, along with keeping access open to Robbins Islands so it can be used by numerous mixed facility users. This includes hiking, sledding, winter biking, ice fishing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and the occasional disc golf pickup game. In the warmer months, staff assisted with shelter reservations at Robbins Island. These facilities were used about 100 times in 2015. 16 showmobile reservations were taken, and I would like to thank Cal Miner for his dedication to this project prior to his retirement. Cal, you will be missed at Music in the Park. Along with these events, numerous additional community activities were arranged and managed by our staff. Ball, diamond, and field preparations were made for over 650 soccer, football, baseball, and softball games. The gun range and our newly remodeled city auditorium is another valuable Willmar asset that reopened this year and is a project that we can all be proud of. The beautification of our city public works staff planted 165 trees and managed the brush compost site, which accommodated over 14,000 visits this past season. The wastewater treatment facility saw the startup of the new Midwest lift station in Forest Main. Their biosolids program hauled nearly 6.4 million gallons of biosolids to MPC-approved cropland this past year. A couple of highlights from the wastewater department include an award for a certificate of commendation for outstanding operation, maintenance, and management of our wastewater treatment system. We also received the Minnesota Wastewater Treatment Facility Operational Award and various staff awards to include Central Section State Class A Operator of the Year, Collection System Operator of the Year, and Class B Wastewater Treatment Facility Operator of the Year. These awards are presented by industry peers and continue to show the caliber of staff we have working for us. Too many times we are quick to point fingers and should instead take time to commend our staff for a job well done. The Public Works Department established and filled the position of an environmental specialist to help manage and facilitate the many environmental and regulatory issues for the city. This position was one that will allow better management of our stormwater system, along with lightening the load in other areas across the city. We also filled the Assistant City Engineer position, and these 2 changes will allow this department to run with improved efficiencies. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has accepted our 20-year compliance schedule for a stormwater permit renewal process, allowing us to meet the new salty discharge limits required by the Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan being integrated into this new permit. In 2015, the Willmar Police Department continued to serve the citizens of our community while sustaining a higher call load than in the prior years. Our police department was able to restart its canine unit through donations from local businesses. Canine Axle is trained in narcotics detection, apprehension, and tracking. The police department continues to interact and promote partnerships with citizens of our community. Increasing police presence in our downtown area has been well received. This was started following a request by business owners, and I have received numerous compliments on their interactions and presence in our downtown. A formal citizen recognition program was started to acknowledge citizens that provide assistance or perform heroic acts in Willmar. These awards are well received and have received positive coverage from our local press and the community members who have been involved in these awards. As most have noticed, our police squad cars took a new look in 2015 with a switch to the police Ford Interceptor utility vehicle from the traditional cruiser, and there's a graphics change to a more traditional black and white look as well. Have you noticed the blue line on the back of these squads? Ask one of our officers what this represents and why it is important for us to proudly display this additional graphic. We are fortunate to have a highly respected police chief, and I'd like to thank Chief Felt for his dedication to our community. The Willmar Fire Department again has a new chief. Frank Hansen was hired as our new Fire Chief Fire Marshal. Frank has 22 years of firefighting experience with the Willmar Fire Department and co-served for 19 years as a police officer with the City of Willmar. We welcome Chief Hansen to our leadership team and look forward to his leadership allowing us to continue with the paid-on-call fire department. Having a paid-on-call fire department saves the city about $45,000 per firefighter, according to a study conducted by the Hubert H. Humphrey School of Public Affairs and released this year. The study is Empty Boots, Quiet Sirens, if you wish to review the report on your own. In 2015, the fire department applied for and received 2 state grants, $13 to train personnel in hazardous materials response, and they also received an additional $26,000 to study a county-wide shared fire services report. Today, our fire department personnel totals 34, with an average of 8.34 years of service. The average response time from dispatch to en route and on scene was reduced from 8 minutes and 45 seconds in 2014 to 7 minutes and 35 seconds in 2015. With fire doubling in size every minute, this is a significant savings. Property loss remains very close to the same from 14 to 15 at $467,000. In 2015, our emergency management system was tested with the avian influenza crisis. Candioi County was hit hard in the epicenter for this national disaster. Out of the 108 cases in the state, 40 of them were in Candioi County. The Candioi County Emergency Operations Center was ground zero for managing the statewide effort. Emergency Management Director Don Erickson stated it took a huge amount of cooperation from state, county, city, and federal agencies and beyond to manage the situation effectively. Mr. Erickson complimented the city, stating a number of the departments were just a phone call away when needed. It should be noted that local planning for this started a number of years ago, and that pre-planning and knowledge of the community partners allowed for a smooth operation as everyone already knew each other and mutual respect had been gained. Thank you to our EOC staff and local businesses that stepped up to make this a successful operation. Our committee continues to serve as a regional center for West Central Minnesota. We are blessed with Rice Memorial Hospital and strong medical clinics in ACMC and Family Practice Medical Group, all of whom are exploring new ways to work more closely together in this ever-changing healthcare climate. By expanding physician specialties and hospital coverage, we will be able to meet the demand placed on our region and serve our citizens well. The Willmar Cancer Center is one example of this continued partnership. Vision 2040 continues to be engaged in our community's future, providing Movies in the Park and 2 leadership programs. This group of community-minded individuals has been instrumental in bringing us our dog park, the study on affordable housing, diversity, supporting our downtown, and many, many more projects. As a result of the group's work, Blue Cross Blue Shield will be investing significant dollars to promote a Willmar Healthy Living initiative. I look forward to the continued work of Vision 2040 is doing in our community and invite those that are interested to join in their vision. There will be another community report on February 29th, so stay tuned to our local media outlets for more information and details on how you can be involved in this project. Our city ended the year with a new face at City Hall. We are extremely fortunate to have Larry Cruz as our new city administrator. Larry comes to us with over 30 years of experience in municipal government. Larry, along with a very competent staff, manage the day-to-day operations of the city, while we, as council, focus on the policies that guide them in their daily decisions. Kevin Halliday worked hard under difficult conditions to keep our city operating under transition between the city administrators, and I would like to thank him for his work as interim city administrator. I have identified a few areas that are important to me in this upcoming year. First, I want to thank the council for what has been a great year. The council dedicates a lot of time and effort to make Willmar a better place. I personally thank you, each of you, for your dedication. As most of you know, the turmoil regarding the departure of our former city administrator, Charlene Stevens, and the recall election fragmented our community. Some time has passed, but those wounds continue to run deep. We all need to take ownership of that and do some healing. You have my commitment that I will do my part to bring our team together. I believe the council is unanimous in wanting to hold a retreat and get down to the business at hand, and details will be forthcoming. Second, I want to hang our Willmar is open for business sign and make it real. We are the major economic engine for West Central Minnesota, and our industrial park is ready for expansion and new businesses. Plans are on the drawing board for some industrial and commercial projects now, which just goes to show that if you build it, they will come. Growing existing industry and business is key to continued growth as a regional center. It is also important that we build strong public-private partnerships and continue positive working relationships with our joint EDC, Candiway County, and the Willmar Area School District. Having these strong relationships and working along with our business community, we can and will make Willmar a great place to conduct business. Third, we developed our master park plan, and we need to continue working our plan. We budgeted and approved $706,000, which will enable us to get our plan moving. Spring is soon upon us, and the council needs to work our plan so we and our community have a clear vision for our park and recreation systems. In closing, we have a great community, and I look forward to serving as your mayor, and I will do my part to make Willmar a better place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you, and may God bless our city. Next, we have the Finance Committee report. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Finance Committee met Monday, January 11th at 4:45. There were no public comments. First item that we acted upon was the Rice Hospital Intergovernmental Transfer Agreement. Rice Hospital representatives, Mr. Mike Schramm and Mr. Bill Fensky, explained to us that back in the fall of 2010, Rice Hospital and the city amended the Intergovernmental Transfer Agreement to increase the rate of payment from 0.4% to 0.75% of net position to cover a pass-through of funds from the state of Minnesota for medical assistance costs for Rice Care Center. Then again, in 2013, the rate was increased from 0.75% to 0.8% because of increased costs and reimbursements for that program. Beginning in 2016, this program has been replaced and no longer needs to come through the city to Rice Hospital. Since the program revenues go directly to Rice, staff has met and discussed the need to amend the present agreement, which covers the years 2016 through 2018. Staff recommendation would be revenue neutral to the general fund budget, and this would only affect the amount related to the reimbursement for Rice Care Center. Following discussion, there was a motion made, second, and passed, and I will introduce a resolution to approve the amended intergovernmental transfer agreement with Rice Memorial Hospital to reflect 0.45% of net position with a floor of $225,000.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item was Bolton and Mink Work Order Number 5. Planning and Development Director Peterson explained to us that while staff had completed the first 2 phases of the land release of the former airport, the final phase is much more technical due to the extent and type of information required by the FAA. The City of Willmar has a professional services contract with Bolton and Mink for the airport services, but there was nothing within that scope of services that included work on the land release. Bolton and Mink had led the effort to secure the Phase 3 land release and has worked on this quite some time. It was determined that the city should formalize those efforts in a work order to define the scope of the additional services as well as the compensation for those services. The total for work order number 5 for the airport land release Phase 3 is $40,000. It was noted that funding is available in the 2015 airport operating budget. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I'll introduce a resolution to approve work order number 5 for the airport land release Phase 3 in the amount of $40,000 with Bolton and Mink.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Anderson.
The next item was Police Department video equipment funding. Staff explained that the Police Department shares a facility with the Candioi County Sheriff's Office that was built in 2000. The initial video recording system installed in the interview rooms used DHS cassettes and was upgraded to DVD recording about 9 years ago. In the fall of 2015, the DVD recording system failed and was deemed irreparable. In the interim, staff has been able to retrofit one of the 3 interview rooms with a lower quality video equipment, but an upgrade and replacement is deemed to be a high priority. An estimate from Banco Company was found to fit our needs and at a lower price than other vendors. It would also be expandable in the future if so needed. The system would be an upgrade to digital video and make transfer of videos to the prosecutors in court more efficient, plus produce a higher quality video audio recording. Staff time to transfer videos is predicted to decrease significantly. Courts and the public continue to expect and demand video and audio recordings for criminal investigations, and we deem this a high priority item for replacement. Due to the sudden failure of the system, it was an unexpected replacement and had not been placed in the CIP at this point. Total cost to the city for this new system is estimated at $13,765.25. And it's being requested that those funds be taken from other line items in the 2015 Police Department operating budget. It was also noted that the county is also contributing the same amount for the purchase of this equipment. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I would introduce a resolution to approve the purchase of the new video recording equipment from Banco Company in the amount of $13,765.25, and that these funds are taken from the 2015 Police Department operating budget.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. I have a question. It's coming from the 2015 funds. Why not from the 2016 funds? Maybe Mr. Okens can answer that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the activity of this, and Chief Felt can add to this, is that the activity of this took place in 15. Due to the timing of the meetings is why we did not take action in 15. And so the invoices and everything are dated in that year, and there are funds to cover that.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Anderson.
The next item was 2016 Improvement Project Preliminary Budget. Staff presented to us the preliminary budget for the 2016 improvement projects. It was noted that council action is required to approve the budgets outlining the estimated cost and funding sources for the projects. Estimated bond financing for these improvements is $1,260,000. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I will introduce a resolution to approve the 2016 improvement project's preliminary budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amman.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Anderson.
The next item was the ice arena water system funding. Staff presented to us a request to install a reversed osmosis water system in both the Blue Line Arena and Cardinal Arena at the Civic Center. If approved, the system in the Blue Line Arena would be replaced yet this season in order to improve the ice for curling. It was noted that the system in the Cardinal Arena would be installed after the ice season because it would need some storage area created and would be better for staff and the installer to complete the project after the ice is out for the year. Total cost for both arenas is estimated at $25,898, with $23,000 budgeted for this project in the CIP. The remaining $2,898 is requested to be taken out of the 2016 Civic Center operating budget. And Mr. Mayor, before I introduce the resolution, we had a question that came up and we were hoping for an answer tonight. And if I could ask Mr. Brizendine, there was quite a disparity in the two quotes that we got, one being quite a bit higher. Could we get an explanation as to why we went with the way that we went, please?
Mr. Brizendine.
Mayor Calvin, members of the council, Councilman Anderson, there was quite a discrepancy in the two quotes that we received for this work. Much of the cost of the project as first presented by the two vendors was for plumbing and piping to get from the Cardinal Arena over to the Blue Line Arena. Upon conversations with one of the bidders who currently have RO system plumbing in our Blue Line Arena, staff and them worked out an arrangement that much of the plumbing that was in the original proposal would not be necessary to accomplish the tasks that we were hoping to accomplish with this project. Thus, you see quotes from Willmar Water and Conditioning showing the reflection of not replacing the whole plumbing system and new tank that is currently in the Blue Line Arena, thus reducing their original quote from $36,000 down to just shy of $26,000, and the other quote was much, much more than that.
Okay.
That is the Civic Center staff's recommendation to move forward with this project based upon those adjustments made with the vendor. And they believe that this will meet the needs of what they've been looking for.
I think that explains it. Thank you. With that said, there was a discussion, and following that discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I'll introduce a resolution to approve the reverse osmosis water system project for the Civic Center in the amount of $25,898, and that $2,898 be transferred from the 2016 Civic Center operating budget to the 2016 CIP budget.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amman.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. The next item was the orange baseball field scoreboard donation. Staff explained that the Willmar Baseball Fast Pitch Booster Association agreed to cost share in the purchase of the scoreboard for the orange baseball field at Swanson Park, and subsequently have made a donation of $5,000 for this project. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I'll introduce a resolution to accept the donation of $5,000 from the Willmar Baseball Fast Pitch Booster Association for the purchase of the scoreboard at the orange baseball field, and to direct the city administrator to send a letter of appreciation.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to accept a $5,000 donation from the Baseball Boosters and Fast Pitch Association. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meskey. Plowman.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes, and I as well would like to thank the Willmar Baseball Fast Pitch Booster Association for their donation. So, Councilmember Anderson.
And our last item had to do with the insurance trust dividend. Staff explained that $250,000 was temporarily borrowed in 2014 from the designated self-insurance fund balance to help fund the city auditorium gun range corrections, with the intent of using annual insurance dividends to repay it. In 2014, $31,916 was received from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, reducing the amount from $250 to $218,083. And in December of 2015, an additional $50,527 was received, and if applied to the adjusted balance, would reduce the amount needed to repay the loan to $167,557. And that was for information only. Unless there's questions, I would move to file these minutes.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to file the minutes. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to that motion, same sign. The motion does pass. Public Works Safety Committee report, January 12th. Councilmember Nelsen.
Thank you. The Public Works Safety Committee met on January 12th at 4:45. The first item that we addressed was information, and it was public comments regarding the library congestion discussion. Citizens brought forth a concern of pedestrians crossing mid-block on the 400 block of 5th Street in front of the library. Mary Lou Arney spoke on behalf of the group to address the issue of safety for pedestrians not using the crosswalk when exiting the library and school buses. The group requested a yellow marked crosswalk with signs in front of the library to allow pedestrians to cross the street to the Block 50 parking lot. Staff noted research shows that these types of crosswalks and sign create a false sense of security and are confusing for traffic as well as for pedestrians not looking for traffic because the crosswalk is there. Chief Felt had spoke with the bus companies that have stops in front of the library, and the KMS and Willmar buses are now dropping students off on the corner of 5th Street and Becker Avenue. This should help to alleviate children crossing the street mid-block to get to waiting parents in Block 50 parking lot. The timeline of the reconstruction of the parking lot was also discussed, with the idea to close some access points to 5th Street as a possible solution noted. Staff stated that the parking lot is not included in this year's improvement projects, as it was previously estimated at nearly $500,000 to complete. The committee and the citizens discussed the speed limit on the street and the idea of lowering it for the safety of pedestrians. Additional research by staff will be continued, and the topic will be addressed further at a future Public Works Safety meeting. The next item is also for information, and that was the police and fire update. Police Chief Felt noted that the jail sentence for January 12th was 157, 84 inmates from the Department of Corrections, 68 inmates from Candioi County, and 5 inmates from Swift County. The calls for service since December 29th totaled 759 and are 4 days ahead for 2016. The total calls for service for 2015 totaled 19,575 and was 1,493 over the calls for 2014. The majority of the calls for the last 2 weeks were for traffic stops, followed by public assist and abandoned vehicles. Chief Felt explained that the broadness of the public assist calls can vary from emergency messages to items in the roadway. Fire Chief Frank Hansen noted that the fire department calls for service for the previous 2 weeks totaled 16, 15 since January 1st. The calls included 4 alarm activations for car accidents, 3 carbon monoxide alarms, and 3 sprinkler flow alarms. The total calls for service in 2015 totaled 333, 24 calls above 2014. Chief Hansen reminded citizens to replace carbon monoxide detectors every 5 years and to replace the batteries every year. The department has received their SCBA equipment and hopes to have it in service by March 1st. The next item is a resolution regarding 1503A, change order number 1, and project final. Staff brought forth for approval project number 1503A, change order number 1, and authorization of final payment to Direc Incorporated. The city entered into an agreement with Direc on May 18th, 2015 for curb, sidewalk, pedestrian ramps, bituminous overlay, and striping of Trott Avenue Southeast from 1st Street to Julie Street and Candy High Avenue from 11th Street to 7th Street. Change order number 1 resulted from overages on quantities of concrete and bituminous. A motion was made and seconded to approve the change order in the amount of $9,491.76 and accept project number 1503 and authorize final payment to Direc in the amount of $30,511, and I will enter that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the change order and authorize final payment to Direc in the amount of $30,511.51. Discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
The next item is also a resolution for 1503B, change order number 1 and project final. Staff brought forth for approval project number 1503B, change order number 1, and authorization of final payment to Direc. The city entered into an agreement with Direc on May 18th, 2015 for curb and bituminous overlay on 23rd Street Southwest from Trott Avenue to 320 feet north 7th Street Southeast from Willmar Avenue to the former wastewater treatment plant, and 25th Street Southeast from 7th Avenue to 4th Avenue. Change order number 1 resulted from overages in quantity of materials for the project. A motion was made and seconded to approve the change order in the amount of $1,254.31 and accept project number 1503B and authorize final payment to Direc Incorporated in the amount of $9,262.14, and I will enter that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve change order number 1 and project final for 1503B. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
The next item is for information, and it was an airport update. The staff brought forth for information and update on the Willmar Municipal Airport. The Public Works Department continues to do an excellent job with snow removal on the runway. The committee discussed the definition of, I think I'm pronouncing this right, NOTAM, which stands for Notice to Airmen, and is used to alert pilots to anything out of the ordinary, such as ice on the runway or winter conditions. The last item was for information only, and it was a non-agenda item. The committee discussed the potential of lowering bids for 2016 road construction projects with regards to the lower petroleum costs. The ordinance pertaining to snow removal on sidewalks was discussed with staff to obtain additional information. Citizen Robin Olson commented on the possible change in the ordinance regarding Saturday parking, with Chief Felt noting that no changes were being made at this time. Mr. Olson also discussed the concerns of pedestrians crossing near the entrance of Frida's Cafe with staff to investigate solutions further. There was no other business to come before the committee, and we adjourned at 5:44. And if there is no comments, I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to file the minutes. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerlie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to item 1, the public, or the library, public library, I remember maybe 6, 7 years ago, Madeline Taylor was here before the council, and she had brought this issue up too. And Mel Odens was the engineer at that time, and he was working on a plan But then he accepted a job with the state, so just wondering if staff might want to talk with him. I'm sure he still has some plans or data on what he was working on. He's with the County County Engineering Office now, so.
Larry, can you look into that?
Mr. Mayor and Council, Public Works Director Christensen has already been in contact with him, and so we are exploring that information, and we'll bring it back at the next committee meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Additional discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to the motion, same sign. The motion does pass. Community Development Committee Report, January 14th. Councilmember Fagerlie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number two was public comments. There was no public comments. Item 3, proposal to sell industrial parkland. Staff presented a purchase agreement from Dooley Brothers LLP to purchase 3 lots in the Willmar Industrial Park 4th Edition with an option for a 4th lot. This is the project which was discussed in December, and the City Council directed staff to negotiate a final purchase agreement, which has been done. The purchase agreement calls for the sale of 3 lots at the listed price of $1.25 per square foot for a total of $442,747. It is anticipated that this price could be reduced due to the industrial land write-down policy. The committee asked how many positions Dooley had at their other locations. Currently, they have 3 to 4 full-time employees in the Willmar office and nearly 30 employees in their Murdoch office. Dooley's plan to move their natural gas staff, accounting jobs, and some bulk drivers to the Willmar locations. Staff will work with the company to see exactly how those jobs fit into the write-down policy. Following a discussion, a motion was made and passed to approve the purchase agreement with Dooley Brothers LLP at a sale price of $442,747, with the final price to be adjusted in accordance with the industrial land write-down policy. I'll introduce that.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve a purchase agreement with Dooley Brothers for land out in the industrial park. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to maybe take a second and bring up the topic of land write-down, and maybe ask Mr. Peterson if he could maybe just briefly just explain how the land write-down program works and how it works with regards to this exact project and going forward.
Mr. Peterson?
Okay, Mayor Kelvin, Councilmember Plowman, members of the council. It's pretty straightforward policy. The council has adopted a policy that says for new industrial projects where the city is the seller of industrial land, that they have agreed to write down the cost of the property by $10,000 for each new employee, and that's new to County County employee. And they will agree to write down the cost by an additional $25,000 based on every $1 million of estimated market value created as determined by the city assessor. That's why we have to continue to meet with the company so we get a better understanding of what their intentions are for job creation. And if the total write-down exceeds $150,000, then it becomes a business subsidy under state law, and we have to prepare a business subsidy agreement that lays out all the goals for employment and capital development. You know, we've used this policy in the past. It's, like I said, it's pretty straightforward, and the ultimate results of the policy won't be known until closing.
Okay, thank you. So if, just to be clear for everybody who's going to read about the project and is talking about the project, if a company utilizing this policy does not meet that particular criteria, then the write-down essentially does not happen?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fagerlie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If this is approved, then staff will start working on an ordinance to sell the land, because we still have to go through that route, have a public hearing.
Okay. Additional discussion, Councilmember Amon.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, do you have a list of how many employees he currently has and where they're living?
Mr. Peterson?
Councilmember Ahman, members of the council, that's the reason for meeting with the company following this meeting. We will create a base of employment. We will identify what they currently have for employees so that we're able to track movement within the company as well as new positions created. It goes far beyond the company just telling us that they've created this number of jobs. There is a system in place where we follow up on that. If it becomes a documentable business subsidy, there will be annual reports filed with the state of Minnesota. Otherwise, it will all be done internally.
One other question. And those annual reports you're referring to, Bruce, are the same reports that we've had for the tax increment financing projects, and for the last, I don't know, so many years we've been doing the same type of form or format. Is that correct?
There is a specific business subsidy reporting form required by the state of Minnesota, and the form details the type of subsidy required, what the goals were in the business subsidy agreement, and then progress towards meeting those goals is noted and documented and submitted to the state of Minnesota. If they are not satisfied with the progress or in meeting the goals, they let the city know whether or not they determine it to be in compliance. We will certainly have that opinion generated locally. And if that does happen, then the city's in a position to issue a clawback and to go back after the company for reimbursement.
One other question, if I could, please. So the new employees that are going to be created, or the new jobs based on the buy-down, meeting the criteria and the requirements that we've set forth and other abatements, is it going to show how many years we have to maintain that level of employment? I mean, can you show a quarterly statement of your business to the state of Minnesota showing you had 10 employees, but 3 months later you only had 2?
Once the goal is met, they have to continue to report for 2 years by law, at which point the state no longer requires reporting. So each of these positions has to remain in place a minimum of 2 years in the aggregate so they can show that they've met that goal.
And one final question. Have we ever reviewed any of these to see how they turned out, the tax increment or the tax abatements? Has the committee ever discussed or reviewed those, or where's all this information?
The information is generated annually by the businesses and reviewed by the EDC and city staff. The EDC in the past has assisted city staff in compiling the reports that go to the state of Minnesota. We're not sure exactly how that's going to work now due to some staff turnover at the EDC, but each of those documents is created and reviewed on an annual basis for compliance.
So then, let me see if I have this right. So prior to the EDC being formed, we still filled out, your department must have filled out those forms and sent them to the state, correct?
They were not required. It's only been the last, I'd say 8 or 9 years, about since the advent of the Job Z program, that the state has had that requirement, that reporting requirement for business subsidies. The business subsidy legislation is relatively new.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional discussion. Councilmember Johnson.
Bruce, one more question, follow up on Mr. Ahman's inquiries. Is the city allowed to have more stringent requirements than the state, or is it strictly governed by state law?
Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, Councilmember Johnson, members of the council, which rules are you specifically referring to? The business subsidy
No, with
legislation?
respect to, you said the state requires, for example, the jobs created remain there for, in effect, for a report about it. The reports are submitted for the next 2 years. I'm wondering if the city can require a greater reporting length of time with respect to those jobs, for example.
I can't answer conclusively, but I suspect the city can. I think those are minimums. generated by the state. I guess it would require some research and consultation with legal counsel to arrive at an answer that I'm very comfortable with.
Thank you.
Additional discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelsen.
Aye.
Meske. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Fagerlie.
All right, item 4, sex offender housing, for information only. The committee discussed an analysis of law regarding sex offender housing prepared by the city attorney, Mr. Scott. The crux of the analysis was that the city has no authority to regulate licensed facilities that serve 6 or fewer residents, as they are considered a single-family use by statute. There is, however, some authority to regulate the location of housing for sex offenders as long as they are not licensed facilities. Ron Davis, a neighbor to such a facility in Willmar, suggested that a statewide registry of level 1, 2, and 3 offenders was needed with location information available to area residents and potential homebuyers. Mr. Davis stated that the proximity of sex offender housing to other homes may hurt sales and property values. Mr. Davis also expressed his concern about the pending release of hundreds of offenders due to an anticipated federal court ruling. Mitra Ingen asked several questions about how to determine whether or not facilities or housing is licensed and urged the council to do what they could to protect the neighborhoods. It was a consensus of the committee that additional legislation was needed at the state level. The committee requested more clarification on the matter and suggested that the city attorney be present or on a phone conference for future discussion. Also, Representatives Baker and Senator Counal should be involved in those discussions. Item 5, 2015 construction summary. Staff presented the construction summary for the year 2015. The total valuation of new construction in the city exceeded $35 million. Several projects that were anticipated to be started in 2015 have been delayed until 2016. So 2016 construction figures should exceed 2015. Item 6, the Y project. There was a request for information on update on the Y, and instead of me reading this, I'll just ask Mr. Peterson to explain it, since he's attending the meetings with the county and the state and the railroad.
Mr. Peterson?
Mayor Kelvin, Council Member Fagerlie, members of the council. The status of the Y project is that it is still in the early planning phases. There has not been a final determination as far as the road corridors that are to be changed. The rail corridor is obviously pretty well set in stone, but there are some highway and county road issues that are still in play. The environmental work is scheduled to begin very soon, and that has to be completed and approved by the FRA and the EPA by September of 2017. It looks like work will now be delayed. The actual construction work will now be delayed until 2018. We'd been told 2017 before, but they still intend to have it completed by 2020, so they're going to accelerate the construction schedule. The important thing to note as far as the city's involvement is that we are not leading or driving this process. This project is led by MnDOT and the Federal Railway Administration. The city's involvement includes primarily the donation of right-of-way. And at this point, the city is not a major player in either design or financing, though obviously our input is being sought as a partner in the project. We are having another phone conversation tomorrow. We'll be in contact with people that are going to be at a meeting at MnDOT in the Twin Cities, and that meeting will include BNSF Railroad. And at that meeting, we'll be talking about how to reach a final conclusion on design to review the two major alignments that are under consideration for the roads, and to discuss a little bit about a process we went through last week in which we analyzed risk to the project, and we came up with a list of nearly 30 risks, and they could be program risk, physical risk, financial risk, timing risk. There was a variety of things that we discussed. Based on that meeting last week, a risk analysis will be done, and the most favorable project from a risk standpoint will be made available to us within about a month. At that point is when we'll really begin with the final planning and being able to put final schedules on the rest of the planning work, the design work, and the environmental work. And it's a project with 1,000 legs, and it's probably going to grow 1,000 more before it's done. It's very complicated, very complex, and with the number of players involved, it's not something that's going to happen very quickly.
Thank you, Bruce. Item 5 was new business, and there was no new business, so if there's no questions, I move to file the minutes.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to file the minutes. Councilmember Nelsen.
Yes, just clarification on item number 4. The minutes didn't really reflect, I think, our conversation about how we would know if a facility is licensed and what type of license they would hold, and I think it was, being referred back to our city attorney, so I just wanted to make sure that we, in our information, can find out what kind of a license they have and what does it mean, so.
City Attorney Scott.
Certainly. So you'd like me to provide some more information to the committee for your next meeting on how the city could know where licensed facilities are? Is that correct?
I believe the information that we got referenced, there were certain things we could do and couldn't do based off from their license, but we didn't have a clue where you could find if something was licensed and what did it mean to be licensed, and, how would we know? How would we know that information and that we could move forward to do something different?
Okay, I can certainly address that in additional information to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion. Councilmember Amman.
Yeah, I read that report, and we're limited on what we can do, but is there anything stopping us from getting the information? I'm talking about the item number 4.
Yes.
You can go to website now and look that information up to see if there are people living in the area or in the town, and I did that. Is there any way we can make it easier for the people to maybe get that information on our website for anybody who might be inquiring, or is that a violation of some certain people's rights?
Mr. Scott?
Public information.
Sorry. Councilmember Amman, members of the council, I'm certainly familiar that some cities have a link to the state's website on their own city webpage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there'd be any reason the city couldn't do that if you wanted to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion. Seeing and hearing none, is motion to file the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does pass. Next is consideration of consideration of state 1-day to 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license application. Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Holiday Inn and Conference Center is renting space to the Minnesota Ducks Unlimited for their statewide DU banquet. They've made a special arrangement where they have an opportunity to approve, or the council does, a state 1 to 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license for use inside a licensed liquor facility. A rather unique arrangement. Staff is recommending, though, that the state permit be approved and that they'll be able to set up their portable booth where they have their plans.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the temporary 1 to 4-day on-sale liquor license within an established licensed facility. Is that how it's said?
Yes, sir.
Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelsen.
Aye.
Meskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amman.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Next, we have a consideration of on-sale 2016 Sunday liquor license renewal.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, one establishment was not approved on a timely manner and lost their Sunday liquor license from January 1 or so until this meeting. You have that establishment listed before you, and it is staff's recommendation that all things are now in order and that we approve the license for that sports bar be effective at the next Sunday.
Also move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the Sunday liquor license. So it's a motion to approve, but it's done by roll call, so it's not a resolution.
It's charter.
Okay, so there will be a roll call on the motion. Roll call?
Councilmember Meskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerlie.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The motion passes. Next is consideration of introduction of ordinance to rezone from Ag to GI Willmar School District. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, the city received an application for rezoning for the 32 acres of property in the northeast quadrant of Willmar Avenue and Lakeland Drive intersection. It's been purchased by the Willmar Public Schools, and they are requesting that it be rezoned from Ag to Government Institutional for the development of a new elementary school. There are a variety of land uses around the property, including residential uses, some industrial uses or limited business, as well as agriculture. The rezoning of this property is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it was approved by the Planning Commission. It's a recommendation of staff that an ordinance be introduced to conduct the public hearing at the February 1st, 2016 council meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the introduction of an ordinance to rezone from Ag to Governmental Institutional. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does pass. Announcement of committee meeting dates. Finance,
Finance Committee will not meet next week.
Public Works, Public Safety.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
We will go with the assumption we are not meeting.
We are not meeting.
Okay.
Labor,
Wednesday, 4:45. Also, I'd like to announce that we will be discussing on that agenda the retreat for this full city council. So just to let you pre-warn that, I would like to see something happen in the next 2 months. So if you have your calendar dates available, get ready. Thank you.
Councilman Rahman, would you like people to get information to you or to the city administrator, or just at the next meeting?
I have some information too already. I'll talk with Larry and
Okay.
set it up on the agenda.
And community development.
We are not meeting because Labor is taking the retreat.
Oh, man, thank you, labor. Okay,
Wednesday?
labor is doing the labor. Okay, additional items for the good of the order.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Amman.
The Convention of Visitors Bureau minutes, we used to have those in our, have they been in there lately, or?
Mayor Kelvin?
Will we turn them in?
Mr.
we miss one?
Councilmember Nelsen.
They didn't, we just had a meeting today. The
Oh.
last minutes go back to, I believe, I don't think they met for a couple of months, so. should
Okay,
be back.
that's what I was wondering, thank you.
Be back.
And one other item I have, Mr. Mayor, on the item 11.5 on page 9, it was dealing with the annual report on our building construction projects in the city. That is, shows the revenue that we have taken in for building permits throughout the calendar year. In there also, I'm just curious, since, the income we receive from our fees for rezoning, plot fees, recording fees of the county, variance board charges, and those plotting charges, shouldn't they be as reported in with that also as far as revenue that was received to make the final product? And what those costs are, or income?
Mr. Cruz, do you, okay. Where do you want to go? Do you want it? Mr. Peterson? Wasn't sure where to send it.
The construction report includes only those fees collected in the course of issuing construction permits, building permits, mechanical permits, and plumbing permits. The other types of revenue, the planning and zoning, land use fees, and fees that are collected from developers for tax abatement applications, and that are reported separately. They are all listed in the report that we file with the state of Minnesota in April, and that report will be prepared sometime within the next couple of months. We also have to detail what our costs were in that same report, and that's a little more difficult to compile. So the short answer is that we don't include the land use fees with the building permit fees and construction fees, but on a periodic basis, if the council would like that information, it's very easy to put that together.
Thank you, that would be acceptable. And do you think that it's possible to have the Community Development Committee or the council review your annual report you give to the state?
Mr. Peterson?
I will make certain that the report that gets filed with the state of Minnesota gets brought to committee.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councilmember Nelsen?
Just clarification, so the Labor Committee is meeting regarding the retreat? Are they setting a date, or are we going to wait till the next council meeting, or how are they, what are they going to do next week?
My understanding in talking with Councilmember Alman is that he has sent information to the city administrator. I'm not familiar with what he's done, so.
I just was concerned about calendar, how, I mean, if we're going to be involved in selecting a date or what we're going to do or what we're doing.
Mr. Alman, do you have an answer to
We'll be
that?
discussing that committee, and also our city administrator said there were a couple items on that he has for labor to address also. And we'll be discussing those and putting on an agenda probably by Friday or sooner.
I'm a little confused what's going on, but I'm sure I'll be caught up to speed, so.
Mr. Mayor and Council, perhaps staff could send out say 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 alternative dates for a retreat, and then I'll come up with a mechanism whereby you can simply accept those dates or decline, and then we'll see if we can't reach an agreement.
So that'll come before or after labor, I think is what the question is.
I think it'll come after labor. At the labor meeting, we're going to talk about who the facilitator will be, and then target some dates, and then at that point, I'll contact the council and see if we can't hone in on an acceptable date.
Perfect, I love it. Great. Councilmember Nelsen?
Just, are we to announcements yet? I mean,
Yes.
There's an opportunity on Saturday to attend the Dad's Belgian Waffle. It's a fundraiser for the baseball fast pitch group. It's at Roosevelt from 8:30 to 11:30, so we can say thank you there, attend there, and help them raise some more funds so they can help do some other projects.
So you can give us another 5,000?
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else for the good of the council, good of the order?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. We are adjourned.